All right, so you have a master's of architecture from Columbia. You ran digital strategy at RGA and Interbrand. You were CMO at a company that then got acquired by S&P Global. Then you end up at a B2B publishing company that traces its roots back to the 1880s, I think. Walk me through the thread that connects all of that, if there even is a thread.
Well, we only have an hour, right?
We only have an hour.
Okay, so we'll give you the abbreviated version. So when I was at Columbia, the program was a paperless design studio. So everything was digital. The internet was sort of born then. We're talking the mid-90s. So I got very involved in web development while I was there. Chose mainly for financial reasons to not pursue the architecture opportunities and went right into what was about to be the .com kind of craze in terms of web development. So I was very involved and started a business building digital products and digital marketing services. And that was sort of the big transition. And that sort of led to pretty much everything there you listed in terms of going around the horn of branding, advertising, digital marketing, web, CMO side, and now the media side. So if you think all three sides of the media business, I've kind of played all those positions now.
And so what about Arizent, or I guess at the time SourceMedia, made you jump from more brand and advertising agency side to the publishing side?
I think it was the opportunity itself. The team I had worked with before, the business that we had sold to S&P was the same management team. So it was attractive to go over there. And really the opportunity to transform a business is really, when I was at RGA, I ran a practice called business transformation. So there's a through line of really digging into things strategically, but also being able to execute. So as a consultant, you're obviously, you've got a lot of PowerPoint level thinking, but not being able to get hands-on following through. And the opportunity to do both of those things as either a chief strategy officer or now in my current role, I really love operating for that reason.
So is this the first time you call yourself an operator?
The CMO roles were definitely operating roles for sure as well. But yeah, that switch from consulting for CMOs and CEOs and actually being a CMO and a CEO, I would say is sort of like a half of a career in one lane and half in the other. But the two definitely shape the way you think.
All right, so you walk in 2018, Chief Strategy Officer. At the time, it's known as SourceMedia. Talk to me a little bit about what the business looked like at that point. And we're talking, that's 8 years ago at this point, but what did it look like at that point?
Very heavily marketing services oriented. Revenue is probably 60% in that direction at the time. Now it's nearly 50% subscription. So that transformation was intentional. Obviously, the first job was to define, what is this business? What business are we in? Where are we heading? What's the North Star? How are we creating value for our private equity owners? Those were sort of the early conversations. And then it was diagnosing the business and where are we going to start? What levers are we going to pull? Where's the biggest opportunity? But the rebranding and changing the name was sort of the intentional, we're not necessarily in that media business anymore. We want to signal something different, tell the company, tell the market, really what is it about this business that makes it really relevant, makes it really different. So we know everybody's waking up every day kind of moving towards some transformation and why. And people don't just want to wake up and transform the business. No one really loves change. It's not super fun. Everybody wants to do what they did before because it's comfortable. So to convince people that they really need to change, you have to show them what the opportunity is and kind of explain that, analyze that, and then the branding sort of followed that.
In 2018, had the team already done a print to digital transformation, or was that a big part of you joining, was to help finally, because I know a lot of B2B media companies are a little bit slower than consumer to make that transition. Talk about that.
They had done a pretty good job, probably took it maybe 25, 30% of the way there, and we've gone the rest of the way there just in terms of bringing it digital. There were websites for all the properties, but they weren't all paywalled. They weren't focused on subscriptions. It was quite the opposite. It was a page view world to sell advertising. At the time, advertising was growing like gangbusters. Right. Everybody wanted it. Marketing services was the high multiple business. Yep. So that's where we were then. And but I think we were a little bit prescient. I think coming from that subscription world, that S&P world where, everything is about high value proprietary business. The other observation was the price lever had been pulled pretty hard.
On marketing services?
No, on the subscription side. So the subscriptions we did have, like the two hero brands, were $1,000 a year.
Wow.
They were even higher when I got here. We've actually kind of normalized them a little bit, but the very premium subscriptions. and the market was willing to pay for it, but you really have to lean into that from a product perspective to kind of get that price to value ratio right.
And so to do that ratio, you pulled back on price, or you just pushed harder on product? Like, is it still $1,000 or is it cheaper now?
It's still $1,000.
Okay.
But making sure that retention rates hold,
right,
and that you find the right buyers with the right proposition. So that's kind of where we are now, is really getting the value proposition to earn that price, earn the price increases, and earn that sort of that ARPU metric that we can get from our existing customers.
And not for nothing, $1,000 in 2026 is not quite the same as $1,000 in 2018.
Right.
We did just come out of a pretty high inflationary environment.
Right.
All right, so Arizent's language states you guys were a media and publishing company that transitioned to a platform-based business, and that was in the press release announcing that you had joined Arizent, was that terminology. Yeah. Lots of media companies like to use that language, that we're not a media company, we're a platform-based business. And it can really mean anything or nothing, maybe. So make it concrete for me. What does Arizent do today as a platform-based business that SourceMedia didn't do?
At that moment in time, the platform we were describing was largely a digital platform that could support the brands we have and then any other brands we wanted to add onto the platform. So I think it was really about creating a data platform, a content platform and distribution system, and the subscription machinery that we had built around that. So everything that platform needed to do for the business and for the customer. That was the shift to become a digital platform business. I think that was a lot about the print to digital era. I think now if we describe what we're doing, it's more about building community than it is about building platform. Now that we're in this sort of future proofing around AI and what value do we provide that AI can't provide? That's the question we're all trying to solve for. And I think that's more about community. I know that's a big buzzword that people throw around as well. Right? If platform was our buzzword of that day, community is our buzzword. But I really believe in that word now.
All right, so pull that thread. What about Arizent's offerings is community in nature?
If you have an events business,
sure,
you're automatically in the community business, in my opinion. I think everything about the relationships we have with people in the community, there's a sort of tribal nature in B2B. And then if you get down into the sort of niche roles and the pockets of B2B where people really need to learn from each other and that the expertise is living within there, everything from the sources, the access to sources that we have, the people that we have on our stage. We're leaning into some peer-to-peer counsel type of things that we've been experimenting with. But generally speaking, our relationships, even our relationships with marketers and CMOs, these are things that we still go to lunch, go to dinner, get on the phone with. I don't think these people want to do business with agents right now. I think there's still this element of human connection and relationship that creates trust. And there's another word that we talk about being the big differentiator or the big need in the information world is trust. And we trust brands, we trust people. We haven't yet built trust for agents. And I think that's where we have to lean into, at least for this moment in time. That's what we have to lean into.
I think the trust thing is just a time function, really. I think I got online. I'm a little bit younger than you, probably around 2000. Is that right? Maybe a little bit younger. And this is the first real big search engines. It was before Google really popped off. And everyone kind of doubted everything they found on the internet, right? Like, can you trust it? Can you not? And now you get to this point, and you find something on the internet, people just believe it. It's like it's blanket belief. I think the same thing's going to happen with these agents. I think the same thing is going to happen with AI. It's you doubt it, but then the next generation comes along and they're just going to blanket believe it. I think that's the problem with on one hand leaning into trust as like a description is trust works in the short term, but people's trust changes because the velocity of information is increasing so quickly. I think they have to just trust what they see, even if it's wrong. How do you kind of think about combating that? If you even disagree or agree with what I say.
No, I do. And I think we have to dig into when we talk about what people trust different information sources for. And that comes down to what they need and what level of trust do you need. We think about information needs on a spectrum, right? If you need an answer, you're going to trust, that is a low trust information need, right? I need an answer now. It's good enough, right? How many miles away is, my cab ride down the street? I trust. Whatever comes back, it could be right or wrong. It's good enough, right? And then you go from I need an answer to, I'm researching something. You'd still trust ChatGPT to research your trip, even business level research. It's close enough, right? You're not really taking any risks based on that information, right? And then you start to move up into, okay, I need coverage. So coverage is a regular beat of information that I need for my job in the B2B context that, is you can get free coverage and you can pay for coverage. Now we're in something where, okay, I'll pay if it's trustworthy content and it's curated in a way that I don't have to go hunting. It's all good, trustworthy. I like this coverage. I'll pay for this coverage. Now you've entered a little bit more into the high trust realm, right? Then you go into like data. Now data people need to be either fed in or research or benchmarks that they will use to make real decisions, right? I think now you're in the high trust. You need good data, right? If you're a doctor, if you're a financial services, a trader, right? You need to highly trust the data. This is not ChatGPT stuff. Like you need to know it's coming from a source. Now you're going to the S&Ps, the Bloombergs of the world, because you know what's in that box is trustworthy. It's been vetted by people, by machines, whatever have you. And then I think the ultimate level is strategy. This is where you start to grow your career, grow your business. Like that's why we say our brand is that North Star. This is what we do, right? Help you grow your career, grow your business. This is high value. This requires a lot of trust. This is getting into relationship and community and experts and other people that you want to get information from. That's not, you're not going to Google search, how do I improve what's my strategy? How do I avoid risk? How do I capitalize on opportunity as a professional? How do I advance my career? This is not advice that you're going to take trust from the random internet. Right. So I think that is sort of the highest level of need in terms of information. I think you'll pay the most and it's the scarcest. That's why you'll pay the most for it. I think we need to be moving in that direction all the time. It's more community-like, it's more vetted, it's more trusted, it's more human, it's more expert, it has experience layered into it. I think when we talk about trust, it's that nuanced for me.
So when you think about that, does it change how you think about allocating resources tied to bringing on new people, whether it's expertise or whether it's, how many sources they have? There tends to be somewhat of a going rate for a journalist. But when the difference between, good enough and that real top tier strategic level you mentioned, do you rethink that kind of willingness to spend to hire top tier talent?
Definitely. I think people who are influential and trusted within the community come with a premium. I think that it's something that you could sort of lay low if you're a talented writer, and now talented writing is not necessarily the thing that's going to get you. I think your relationships, I think it's your ideas and your relationships. I think it's you can be very connected, but you also have to have creative ideas. This is the thing that separates us from the machines, in my opinion. Experience, creativity, access to sources who are not going to take a call from an agent. Right. These are scarce and high value.
Ironically, that is one of the reasons I'm so resistant to the idea of using AI to write articles. I was talking to a reporter once, and I'm sure I've said this on the show before, where I asked her, I said, if what you do is two functions, right? You report and then you write. Well, the reporting can't be done by an agent. The writing can be done by an agent. So why don't you just spend all your time reporting and leave an agent to write for you? And her response was, going to the whole creative thing, was when I write the article, I connect dots that I didn't know existed, which then give me ideas for the next stories I need to go do so I can go back and do more reporting. If I didn't write that article, I would never have those dots get connected because the agent would write the article for me. And that's a worse experience for the audience. And so it's like, on one hand, I love the efficiency gain from using AI to create content. And I do it for marketing emails and stuff just because it saves time. But I still do all my writing myself because I don't actually know when something's going to inspire an idea. And I don't think there is inspiration with AI. There's just delivery of whatever it is you ask it for.
I think that's exactly right. It's the creative process.
Right.
That's the high value stuff. That's why you trust journalists. That's why you pay the premium for things. It's the ideas that come from human experience that we develop in the process. And if you script that, you can script anything.
Yeah.
But you really can't. Like the way our brains work, and navigating things on the fly and changing ideas on the fly, like that's not how machines think.
Right. Yeah. So you're backed by Observer Capital. which has owned this asset since I think 2014, which for a PE firm, I know it's a different type of PE firm, but that's a long time for a single, for capital to own something.
Yeah.
How does the ownership structure kind of shape the decisions that you get to make or don't get to make?
There have been, I know everybody kind of says this about their PE
Great partners.
Great partners, easy to work with. They let us do what we want to do, but it's fairly true.
Yeah.
I think that the reason for the long hold was a lot of COVID.
Mm-hmm.
I think there was a lot of work to be done, and it kept moving in a pretty positive trajectory. It's a very profitable business, so there was sort of no rush, and just more opportunity seemed to be around the corner to go get each time we kind of launched a new phase.
Right.
But I would say, no doubt, COVID was a multi-year setback for everybody, and then coming out of that, you had sort of a strange deal environment where
still do have a strange deal environment.
Yeah, people kind of trying to, and I don't fault anybody trying to pick up assets for super reasonable multiples, and owners wanting very different type of things. So not really meeting people coming around, sniffing around with interest, and then you could waste a lot of time in trying to get. And you have to know that the time is right for you, not timing the market or just because somebody's knocking on the door. For us, the time may be coming, but it hasn't been for the last few years.
But
we've had a lot of leadership change intentionally.
Yeah.
Coming off the back of COVID, some bumpy years, turbulence in our own industries, but we got stabilized, and now we're on a really strong growth trajectory. So we need to play this out for a bit.
Yeah, prove that it works. Yeah. Prove the model makes sense, and we'll keep digging into that model because it's one of the things I always enjoy about talking with you is you're thinking about the subscription business. And every time you and I stop talking about it, I go, I really wish I had a little bit more resource so I could do these things. Because we've talked about role-based stuff, which you're doing. We've talked about enterprise subscriptions, which you're doing. And I'm like, that all makes sense for building a premium B2B business. That is the thing that I think most publishers are not doing right yet. And if they get that right, will work. So I want to get to that. But I am kind of curious, kind of putting on your financial hat for a second. So there are a number of brands across finance and professional services. Mm-hmm. Some of those brands are old as all hell. I mean, 1880s, like I said, I think for American Banker, which just, if AMO is ever that old, I won't be here, but that's just a crazy concept. How do you think about resource allocation across the portfolio? Does each brand stand on its own, or is there some sort of cross subsidization happening?
So I reorganized the business around 3 revenue lines. Okay. And I did it for accountability because the matrix structure it created an environment of, I would say, slow decision making and lack of accountability for revenue and margin within the 3 business units. They're also very distinct buyers. So subscriptions are going to one, marketing services going to another, and events going to another. The delivery and operations look very different in each of those things, and the sales look very different. So for those reasons, we put almost like a GM structure in place. So under me, there's 3 EVPs that are almost like a president or a GM model. Yep. So information services, marketing services, events. It's how we report our revenue. But within there are leaders of each of the brand communities. So your EICs are leading on the information side. There are sales people on the enterprise side lined up with the communities. Same for marketing services. You have sales leaders in each of the communities. And then on the event side, it's not always a one-to-one, but on the event side, you have people who are, a programmer kind of focused, or maybe 3 focused on banking. Everything kind of over-indexes on banking just because
it's the big brand.
It's the big brand, and that and Bombay are like 80% of the business. So they get the most resources, but we do have expertise and specialization in the brands within each of those 3 divisions.
So just to kind of say that back, you've got a head of information services, right? The GM of information services. That person has a head of sales who then has a sales team going out to sell group subscriptions. Then you have a head or GM of marketing services. That person has a head of sales.
Correct.
And then events also has a head of sales. Sorta.
That one is shared.
Okay.
The reason is in marketing is the one thing that breaks the mold, because in marketing services, you're dealing with the same buyers.
Right.
There may be a field marketer who buys events, but really we're trying to work with the CMO on an annual integrated program, and the content is multi-channel. That's our pitch. So it's kind of hard to get a phone call from somebody and say, I'm over here calling you on a media program, and then tomorrow somebody else is calling you for an event sponsorship, when we're saying they actually work together.
Right.
So that's been one thing that I think has made a very we've kind of always been organized that way. It was a little bit hybrid, and now okay, this is it. That sales team is over here, because sponsorships and event sponsorships and media are similar, as well as attendee revenue proposition and subscription propositions are also similar.
So who owns the attendee revenue subscription or attendee revenue, like ticket sales business? Is that?
It's largely a marketing function.
Okay.
So it's less sales and more marketing. But we do have a couple of people who are dedicated to sales, group sales largely, or working with individual singles. But it's just two people for all of our events that do that, and they can cover it. Inbound inquiries, largely a group sales function. So it's more marketing for attendees than it is sales. It's really the two big sales teams, and they're pretty equal in size, as marketing services and information services.
So why go that route rather than giving like a publisher role to every single one of your main brands and have them kind of build out the team that they need? Why you've sort of centralized by business model? Talk a little why about that.
Yeah, if you gave the leadership to the publisher, that's effectively in the sort of in the media world, they're the head of sales for marketing services. So there's a bit of a tail wagging the dog, in my opinion.
So basically you're saying this becomes a marketing services business.
Yeah, you have certain controls that you don't have to ask permission to publish custom content. You can do whatever you want within your world. You can't influence what content is being developed for subscriptions.
Right.
So if you try to say, hey, I need more pages on this editor-in-chief of American Banker, develop more content from my sponsor, it's not going to happen.
Right.
We try to keep these things in very lockstep, where the flywheel moves across, and we launch a new community in on-chain finance and blockchain and crypto. We also launch payments intelligence on the subscription side, and at the same time, whole new pool of sponsors and advertisers in the blockchain space and finance. So that flywheel works across all three because we deliberately did it at the same time and in tandem with each other. So they all benefit from each other. Events are driving subscription buyers, subscribers. The subscription team is putting people on the stage and driving attendees, and the marketing services team is benefiting from all of that. And in fact, publishing market intelligence in their own right, because 20% of our marketing services revenue is research and custom content. And I consider that to be market intelligence.
Right.
What we do is what we do everywhere.
Right.
On the stage, we're not an expo business. On the stage, we have market intelligence. In our marketing services group, we deliver market intelligence. We tell them, we make people click on things. We build relevance and differentiation for your brand. We do this every day for a living. Let us do that for you. They don't all let us do it, but they take our advice because we are content experts within our community. No one knows the community better than us. So I see all three parts of the business connect as a flywheel through content strategy. And everything we do in launch is connected. Whether they every day like working that way, I have to force it, because I've also created this individual accountability where it's my people, your people, right? Which is important to hold the line.
Yeah.
Like you can't have your people who wake up every day and you say your KPIs and your bonuses are based on writing content that drives subscriptions. You can't tell those people their time is now going to be spent over here helping on there. You have to help a little bit, but generally speaking, your time needs to be focused on your KPIs.
So your entire editorial team then reports into the GM of information services. And then, is that right?
That's right.
Okay.
And they're bonused on subscriptions.
So the editorial team is bonused on...
Not page views, not marketing services. That's not their thing.
Are they bonused on net new or retained as well? Like, is it basically like total subscription revenue or total net new subs?
It's a blend of things. Yeah. They have a variety of KPIs, but the majority of people need to be thinking about how they drive their revenue goals for their organization, this business.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
So is the portfolio locked, or could you see Arizent either launching or acquiring new verticals?
We have a lot of work opportunity within the existing verticals now. So it's not really.
And what are the verticals? Sorry.
Yeah. So it's banking, bonds, wealth management, mortgage, accounting, insurance, and benefits. They were, it was all Thomson Media back in the day. So we had 35 print publications. They were all effectively financial services. Yeah. I mean, you could argue insurance and accounting are also in financial services, but that's what it was. One big financial services portfolio. We either divested or merged brands over the years to get to the 7 sort of hero brands that we work with now.
So you don't see launching or acquiring new brands over the next foreseeable future?
That's not the strategy right now. We would, if we made an acquisition, it could be for audience to fuel one of our focus areas. So we're really focused on this role-based strategy, which is really actually subdividing our existing communities into banking/payments. And that's, would we go and acquire a payments publication, or would we just keep building in our payments? I mean, we keep building. If somebody said, I have a payments publication that has exactly the audience you're looking for and will expand our existing audience and double the size of it, that's really interesting, because from a flywheel perspective, not only are we're gonna help them grow they're probably not necessarily as good as we are at subscriptions. So we can help grow the subscription revenue. There's marketing services dollars to be had and event attendees all happening off it. So you get 3 benefits from one by plugging that in. So acquiring for audience, great. The other thing we would do is acquire for data or data capability that could push us, or anybody who's in that sort of peer networking, who's a real expert at the sort of peer networking space. That's definitely of high interest, because we want to move into that direction of community building. It feeds data, it feeds events. It's an all-around flywheel play for us. So we're kind of have not found the right play there yet, but are interested in that. So from an acquisition perspective, those are sort of the spaces that we're looking at.
So either an audience or data sort of bolt on in the core 7 verticals.
Yeah.
And even then, is it more likely you'd care more about something in banking or bonds than perhaps in benefits or insurance, or anything across the 7?
Most of what we're doing is right now we're really focused on banker and bond buyer. Yeah. For obvious reasons. It's really, where the end markets are most disrupted. So it's large growing end markets that are going through big disruption. Not that they all aren't going through it. I mean, AI is a disruptor through just about any vertical you could possibly think of.
Anything.
And it's great for business, to be honest with you. But we're definitely, we usually start in banker and incubate ideas and then quickly move them down. Whether it's product-led growth strategy or a content strategy or a concept, we'll launch it in there and it moves its way through the portfolio.
All right, let's talk about the subs business. You've launched payments intelligence, legal intelligence, AI intelligence, and advisor intelligence, all in a pretty tight, compressed window. I think it's like the last, 3 or 4 months.
Yeah.
What's the thesis behind these X intelligence brands?
That we will increase the value, for one, of what we do. That will allow us to increase retention rates, increase price, or justify price. It also is creating a new buyer entry point. For years, our enterprise relationship is with procurement. Predominantly, it still is. But when you have a champion, procurement never just makes the decision. No, they actually don't care about the content, as you know. It's champions within the company. Like, I'm going to check with some people. And then if enough people say I want it, or they just go to procurement and say, we're doing this, we need you to negotiate our centralized pricing contract, but we want this. And every year they go back and check, and they're like, yep, we still want it, and then they renew. So procurement is sort of in the middle of it. But developing a relationship with the champion means you have to know the head of payments. They have to be, it's a personal relationship. We meet them at our events. We know them through either sourcing, awards programs, live events, what have you. Or we'll just solicit them and say, hey, would you like to be part of our advisory group? Or would you like to be part of a peer networking thing that we're doing? And they'll come to, we've done these things at our events or at our office, and they come because they trust the brand. They know that we're going to bring like-minded people. They know we'll do Chatham House rules. Like, they know this is big part of the trust in the community play I was talking about earlier. So we'll meet them that way. And then we have these sort of pods of like EVP level payments people at top banks, right? And once you have them, They become experts and thought leaders within the community, and others want to learn from them. They want to learn from each other, and everybody else wants to learn from them. So you have like 50 banks driving financial services plus fintechs, and then every other one trying to learn from them. And they can only learn from each other.
Right.
So so the other part of market intelligence is data. So this idea of surfacing opaque data, a lot of that is we'll use AI or to comb through a lot of off-the-shelf data, analyze it, put it together in an interesting way, write about it. But to get to the opaque data, there's a give to get trust in there that may publish it as an anonymized benchmark or index, right? So we're doing a stablecoin index right now, super hot topic in banking and in all financial services. So it's a combination of us using AI to aggregate data, how we put that data set together, and then getting opaque data from the banks who are like, if you want to know how you truly rank against peers and where you stand, you need to give us something. We'll keep it anonymous, but if you're if you're an insider there, you can cut that data and really dive deeper into it and see where you stand among others. So those are some of the things that are going to fuel, I think, the stickier part of the community. All of what I just described is market intelligence. And there's a face of it who's not a journalist. The whole department is outside of the journalism pool. So the EIC does not run market intelligence.
Okay.
It's research driven, it's data driven and community driven. And the face of the community and that chief analyst is a new type of role. So they're, born of those people. They're one of those people. So for example, the head of payments intelligence that we just brought on was the head of payments analytics at the Fed. So she's well known. She's an expert. She knows the entire system inside
she can
and
get
out
anyone
of
on the
banks.
phone probably as well.
She gets it, yeah, and understands the Fed. So she will be the face of the community and the chief analyst. And when we kind of gather people together, that's your sort of MC person. So a little bit of that Forrester, Gartner kind of person that you recognize as the face and expert of it, but also a lot of content creation that fits into our subscription world. So this is, it's a new facet of the product.
And ultimately, these are, if you look at an organization, these are various roles within one of those banks, right? You've got a head of payments, a head of legal, a head of AI. That's the idea for why you're sort of rolling them out this way, is you want to be able to pinpoint. I don't just want a banker reading this. I want the payments person. I want the legal person. Is that a fair representation?
Risk,
right?
Payments, AI, and the advisor one in the bond world was just an interesting, like, legal intelligence. We looked at the TAM. And we looked at people who had high propensity to paying a lot, and we have very few relative to the TAM. So there's a lot of headroom. Why don't we have the rest of them? It's because we choose to sort of focus on the ones that kind of, we see them at our events and we know them, and we kind of sell to the people we know, but like, where are all the others? So we would go into, it's like, who are those buyer types? And then you create a persona, and then you write for them. You build events for them, and you attract them to the table, and then you sell them on something. But what is that something? Is it news? Sure. But we've been trying to sell them news for a really long time.
Right.
These people at this level, we feel like we need something more. More and more need to swim up that needs hierarchy and really be a strategic information for these types of buyers. And that's what the market intelligence product is really pinpointed at.
A much more deeper connection of like connecting folks one-to-one, and then also that data layer on top.
Data layer, analysis of that data, and all of the sort of community gatherings, experts, sharing of information that comes with not just where we all work in the banking industry, but we all work in payments in the banking industry. And it's not just in banking, it's the intersection of banks and fintechs and payments. And how does that community come together? The partnerships, all of this complexity and layers. It's like a lot to navigate, and you need to talk to other people about it, not just to learn from their experience, but how to partner with other people on this. And we can be that facilitator, because who else is going to do it? Right. Not only are we in the niche and the vertical and sort of the dominant brand there, but like down at the role level, like, who is the champion of those people?
So before, you said that a subscription to American Banker was $1,000 when you started. What would, if I'm the head of payments at a bank and I'm going to get payments intelligence, what am I paying?
You can get one seat for the $1,000. It's not a different.
Okay, so it's and then not only am I getting payments intelligence, I'm also getting all of American Banker.
All the news.
Okay.
It's all payments intelligence is inclusive of the news.
Okay.
Yeah, we're not piecemealing things out. The only thing that potentially in the future could be a separate charge would be if you buy into a peer networking kind of concept where your whole team buys in, and then one or two people can show up to a round table 4 times a year at the event. So we're piloting one for AI at digital banking and one for at Payments Forum next month in San Francisco. So those are extensions of the subscription world into the face-to-face channel. So you can both bring those people to the event, which makes the event better, and then you can draw from the audience and speakers of the event and try to draw them into this community to become part of it. And then ultimately, it's subscription-based no matter what.
And so has the fundamental change in how you sell this simply been who you get to try to sell to, like procurement versus the champion? Or have you rethought your go-to-market with your enterprise sales team when talking about the various intelligence brands?
Yeah, I mean, we're leaning into the enterprise channel for a number of reasons. I mean, the singles channel there's risk, right? We all know the risk in that channel. And it has a different retention rate. It has I think at the end of the day, if Google continued to tighten down and we're developing product to sell to people directly. The Google channel, I think we have to look at that channel as a marketing channel. I think historically it was the channel. We were a second click from Google, and that was our business model, to be the second click from Google or social, and then it was social. The combination of social and Google was predominant. More and more, we're building our own audience, expanding with the unlimited subscription model that I told you about, seeping into these institutions, creates our own database. Then there's more newsletter engagement. And now you look at the traffic patterns, and newsletters are 25, 30% on some of our brands of the traffic. Back in the day, that was a sliver. Right. Google was 80 to 90% of the traffic, which you had a bad day in Google, they changed their SEO algorithm. Like we were just kind of playing to it. And then you start writing for that game. Instead of writing for the audience I described earlier, the high value, high propensity to pay audience, that's where we need to spend our time investing in our content and stop worrying about that, frankly. You have to, because it does feed, right? But honestly, the growth rate of that channel versus enterprise is night and day. We're just diverging. The growth is just diverging away from that singles and into the enterprise channel. And it's a 90% minimum, 90% retention rate across the brands.
I've always looked at the individual as the identifier of the champion. So, and I think you and I've talked about this. Why I even have this show is I get an hour and a half with a CEO. Not every single CEO on this show has a subscription, but those who don't tend to buy one after the fact. They then become a champion of AMO within their own business, and who has the budget to buy a group subscription to AMO, if not the CEO. Right. And so it's the same. I find I put no stock into our individual subscription business. That's not entirely true. Obviously, I like every one of them because we're not that huge. But I don't think that is the way to build AMO subscription business. But it's a great way to get your early champions. If they're willing to invest and put their corporate card in, and they get interested in it, and they're a senior enough person where they have a team, that's the way that I try to get them in for a group. So I also don't invest heavily in trying to get individual subs. Maybe I should probably invest a little harder because marketing does do something. Yeah. But it's I find for B2B, it's the group sub that drives everything.
I don't know why. I know why we've created this go-to-market strategy in the media world of waiting for it to rain down from Google and count our pennies from heaven. I don't know why we haven't looked at the people. Most of our marketing services customers are software companies. The way these people become unicorn businesses, right, by building product that people need and go into market through marketing channels. So they go to events, they do paid media, but most of us do not do this, right? So we talk about audience development, which is really about engagement and SEO and now GEO and things like that. But why don't we look at an LTV to CAC ratio of 3, like a software company be, or ARPU over time? This is just good digital business practice. What's wrong with that? What's wrong with paying for a customer who has a lifetime value, which by the way, if you start to look at on a good brand, you start to look at this stuff, these people are staying over 2 years. So you're really making double what you see in a year off of that investment. So if you're spending, if we spend a couple $100 to buy a subscription, what's wrong with that? It's good business actually when you do the math. So I don't know why more of us aren't sort of looking at and then you start to be a little bit more liberated from that world and say, okay, I have a product that people are willing to pay $1,000 for. I just need to go out and find the right people. So partnerships, paid and earned, paid media across channels, and experimenting with what content is driving high intent audiences and getting better and better at converting them. So we used to do that more, and then things were just working so well. We had product-led growth initiatives, and everything was just going so well. And then when that traffic tapered back off again, we're like, okay, we should be considering going back to this because we're more and more looking like a product company that sells things to people for money than we are a media company which waits for Google to tell us when we're going to have a good and bad day.
Right. I think part of the reason, so when I was at Morning Brew, and even before that, there was always this sort of negative perception about the fact that we spent obscene amounts of money on growth. Like we were spending at one point in time 7 figures a month on newsletter acquisition. And people, there were media reporters out there who and analysts who would say that we were, this was arbitrage. They would use that negative word arbitrage in the media space. And I understood where that was coming from, where they would say, oh, well, our audience came organically. We didn't have to buy our audience. And it's like, at the end of the day, the whole like negative perception of arbitrage came around like the made for AdSense era, where like you would spin up a website, put a ridiculous number of banner ads on it, or like the slideshows, right? Where you click through like 97 slides. And then you would use, like the chum box ad units at the bottom to get, you pay 50 cents a click, and then you'd make the money back on the 17, 18 clicks on the website. An arbitrage opportunity, no true audience. But every other business in the world pays to acquire customers. Every other business. Our marketing services businesses are basically saying to customers, you should pay us to help drive business to you, but then we turn our head to doing it ourselves. It's never made sense to me. I think that the only way to survive in this era where the traffic is going to get harder to acquire is to pay. You're going to have to. But I also think that's going to fundamentally change the business models for these companies, because it's much harder to get a 3, LTV to CAC ratio of 3 when you're only advertising or marketing services. A little bit easier when you got that subs business behind you.
That's right.
So you've mentioned a couple times this concept of a flywheel at the company. Now, you would argue the subscription is the foundation of that flywheel, or the start of it, but then it kind of starts to spin faster. Talk about what that flywheel looks like at Arizent.
Yeah, I would say that the audience is the center of the flywheel, and that database. And we spend a lot of time making sure that there's an audience team who manages that center, and their job is to make sure that they're 90-day active and staying engaged. They don't slip off, acquiring new, which does involve some paid and some earned, and partnerships and all these kinds of things. Our social media presence, how we bring in people in. We have a pretty seriously strong gating strategy. You can read the first article if you put a little bit of info in, and that's it. One for life. But that one for life. Wow, one for life. But we collect a lot of email addresses that way. We collect email addresses following our events. You want to keep up with the agenda and how things are going. And all of the demand gen work that we do for our customers, they're actually opting in for our privacy policy that we share with our sponsors. But first and foremost, you're opting into us. So those are 3. The flywheel is being fed from 3 directions, and then it fuels all 3. You have to watch. There's a governance piece of that audience team too, to make sure we don't over email, and we have a lot of rules and methods for making sure that we minimize opt-outs. We study all of this to make sure that the audience continues to grow in a positive direction. So the center is the audience. Then I think in terms of how that flywheel goes around, the role-based approach is probably the best way that we can talk about how that thing works together. If you're launching a new market intelligence product, right? It's aligned with an event. So an example would be the AI intelligence that's coming out the gate will align with digital banking. There's also an awards program we launched this year, similar to our most powerful women in banking, but it's most influential, most innovative people in finance. So it's a whole new ranking, the 50 most innovative people in finance. That will happen at that event. So there's a whole connection between AI intelligence and what goes on at digital banking, both in terms of community and content. And then on the marketing services side, there's clearly a long list of people who are lined up for AI. So there's opportunity for those people to sponsor from the marketing. They can draw data from the pool to create custom content. We can do custom research for them. They can buy, if we're going to be launching some new piece of research, they can sponsor and take over that part of the site. So there's a real connectivity across the organization about when we launch something, and that there's an awareness of sort of inventory and opportunities for every member of the community to connect or participate. And so another example, our events marketing team will go to our subscription marketing team and they get treated like a customer. So they will put a campaign brief together and all of our channels will serve them. Mm-hmm. So how do we get a payments event to draw from, what is the opportunity on the, right, they'll write a brief and the marketing team will come up with a whole strategy. So we treat events like a customer, and then that's how these pieces sort of connect to each other.
We've talked a lot about group subscriptions. How do you think about pricing when it comes to selling a group subscription? If American Banker's $1,000 mm-hmm. for a single person, how do you think about the step down in price as you add more people? Is there a science to that? Is it just kind of like you kind of make
There's a matrix. There's a matrix to it. So, every tier of 1 to 5, 5 to 10, however many seats it is, you push them into getting a couple more seats so that they go into a lower tier. So it's pretty standard pricing strategy. I think the big unlock for me was moving towards this unlimited, like true enterprise unlimited mm-hmm. seats, because if you study what the opportunity is to grow through upsells every year, which is great. I mean, the team can definitely on average get 5 to 10% upsell every year. I mean, there's obviously a few downsells, they're pretty rare, and some churn, but that's kind of your best day. Sometimes you'll be over that, sometimes you're under that, but it nets out to 5 to 10% upsell a year. If you could get a big chunk of increase, if I told you I'll unlock your whole company, you're going to give me a 20% more right now, and then guaranteed 10% increases every year. On our best day, that would be great money, 10% every year. It's guaranteed. These people are super sticky customers, and they're sticky because we just opened it up to the whole company.
Right.
So now if procurement tries to bail out, it's very hard to unwind 5,000 customers instead of 15 to 50 customers who are logging in every day. How do you stop? There's going to be like an upheaval if you take it away. So I think it's a brilliant strategy, and it builds the database exponentially. Mm-hmm. So in like 8 months, we doubled the number of paying customers who have no paywall in less than a year. Doubled our entire history of customers access just by doing this strategy. We got the immediate benefit. Our upsell numbers are better. I don't know why we ever sort of held the line on this like nickel and dime. It's a very difficult relationship too to have every year, to constantly prove why you should go up. Proving why you should stay is okay, but why should they spend more every year?
Right.
Now we've had this conversation one time. It's a win-win for everybody. They are winning huge, and we're locked on our best possible outcome. And the database is growing exponentially.
All right, so $1,000 gets you 1 seat, then it's a step down, right? 5 people get you, say $950 a person, 10 is $800-900. I'm making it up. You get to 5,000 people. What does it kind of work out to as an average revenue per subscriber?
Small,
like $50, $100, like how, and then how do you? It
just doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter.
Yeah,
because you'll make it up on the marketing services and the event side, or because it's just so much more money from that one logo, it doesn't matter.
It was more money on the upfront, and then it's more money on the annual. Mm-hmm. So it's just more money all around. That revenue per account broken down by seat is just it's artificial when you look at the bigger picture. The bigger picture is really growth, right?
I had an ad sales guy I used to work with who would say you can't pay your mortgage with a CPM.
Right.
You pay it with the dollars you get in from the buyer. So it's the same thing there.
Whichever strategy
gets you the most dollars. That's how you pay your bills.
It's the most dollars, but it also increases, I believe it increases retention and it increases the database size, which has the flywheel effect of the whole business.
Right.
So there's about 3 benefits there over doing it the other way.
Let's talk about your favorite topic, which is artificial intelligence. Because every time you and I run into each other, we somehow wind up talking about that. How are you looking at, not forcing, but encouraging the Arizent team operationally to start using this technology? And where have you come, say, from 18 months ago to today from actually implementing the tech?
We started, I think with most people, with a council, right? So cross-functional, every representatives from all parts of the business. So we had all the best ideas come to the table and people who were the most enthusiastic. So we did that. I think most people did that right out of the gate. There was some governance there, making sure that people didn't, you have to ask before you do something kind of thing. Lots of people using ChatGPT as a personal assistant kind of model and paying for it themselves and all of that, which is fine. We just said, just don't upload our stuff as sort of matters of policy and kind of had some town halls about it, but not stifling anybody from experimenting. But it was wild experimentation. And then, after me attending conferences, talking to peers, like seeing how things were sort of shaping up, I'm like, we're definitely not moving fast enough as I would like. And how are we going to make that happen? We have to take it seriously and make it part of our business. It needs to have a function in our company. It needs to be part of our org chart. So we had a lot of idea, and the council idea was not really getting us very far. So we started there's sort of a couple of realizations. One is that I don't think decentralized agent building is the way forward for a number of reasons. I think what we had was people, this one using Claude, this one using ChatGPT, and this one's using OpenClaw over here, and everybody's experimenting with building agents. First of all, it reminds me of the early days of the .com, which I told you I lived through it all, and what we saw was like everybody needs to use the internet, everybody needs to have websites. So every department in every company was building their own website. And like going around IT or anything central, don't want to get told no. So they just started launching websites for everything. Sales had a website and returns had a website and internal had a website. And no one thought they should just centralize this into one platform or have best practices or build something that was scalable, or instead they all hired their own agency. And then I sort of was a beneficiary of that in the early days, and then had to come through and clean it all up.
Right.
So what you did was shut down 5 websites in an organization, and you said, okay, now we have one platform. Right. It's built in this technology. We're going to scale it. It has a database underneath it. It has security and all this kind of stuff. And we got professional about web development, and that sort of happened 5 years, maybe 3 years later. Here, I think we realized this was happening, and there are several concerns about, our information being used for training, being uploaded. And when you start to think about the agents you want to build, you want to connect to your databases from these use cases, and that requires IT to get involved. So the long story short is we created a central team. We had an audience team who looked after data in the company. So we have it was all Google. We're all Google Cloud. We have BigQuery, Google Analytics. Everything is kind of nice and neat in the center of the company. It was managed by the audience team who looked after all the databases, business intelligence at the company, email, all of that stuff was sitting in there. So we sort of divided that team up and said, part of this is audience development, which is more of a marketing function. Email growth, audience growth, partnerships, things like that, social media, all of that becomes a sort of marketing function centrally. And then the rest of the data team and the person who was leading that is now the AI team. So they have resources. We didn't go out and build it. We need people who know our databases, know our connectivity, know our security. Part of IT is in there. So that group is responsible, and they will create the roadmap so that we'll move forward. And we treat it just like our product roadmap, separate from the product department. It's mostly agentic solutions. And we said, all right, we're going to go all in on Google, and we procured enterprise Gemini, Vertex, agent building platform and everything, and connecting it to BigQuery and some of our stuff in the background securely, and who has access and controlling everything so that there's no leakage of data. You want good connectivity, and you don't want duplicative agents being built all over the company because it's a waste of time, and you're never going to be able to build great ones. I think scattered around the organization. Like you don't want journalists having to build their own agents. If they have a use case that we need and we say, okay, that's a priority, right? We'll put that in the roadmap and we'll build it for you. And then all of the journalists will be able to use it. And it will be a best-in-class application. And it will be secure and it'll be connected. And we have to, there's a lot of considerations behind this thing, the least of which is the token burns that are happening in the background that people don't even understand, that you build these things and you roll them out and it's happening like little wildfires around the company. It feels like that disorganized .com era. So that's what we're trying to do. We're bringing it back to the center, and then we've mapped out organizational charts of the whole company, of every department, and sort of had that team go in and interview every single role and function and say, all right, what can only humans do and should be doing? And this comes back to the trust and the community layers and the things that we want our brand to stand for. So all the relationships the journalists have, build those relationships like we talked about earlier. The sales teams building relationships and managing people. So you're managing across, you're managing up, you're hiring people, you're dealing with a lot of human interaction, community building, ideas, creative strategy, things like that. That's what the humans do. Below, everything else, right? We know what they can do better than us, faster than us. Great, give them that work. And then there's like another layer of where those humans come in and check the work. Got to have that sort of QA layer. So there's like the front line and then that last mile and then the agents are in the middle. So we drew out these org charts across the whole company. So there's a lot of agent ideas in there that, where do we start, right? So then we go into a prioritization exercise of which ones rise to the top in terms of like the impact, the level of difficulty, just like we would do a product roadmap, score them and start to roll them out one by one in terms of how we're going to do it. So it feels secure, it feels organized. We have a budgetary process tracking where the spend is going. We have a team who's dedicated to it. It feels more like what our product team does, only it's not product, it's something different.
And have you seen material improvements in efficiency or growth or anything like that because of this rollout of these agents?
The one that is going to, for now, immediately having that impact is the sales agent that I had mentioned to you. This is something that, it's a use case, it's pretty popular use case where it's researching clients and bringing us the information we need and then mapping it against our media kits and our inventory and even checking, client conversations and like triangulating all this information and saying, okay, here's a strategy for how we should work with this person. These are the 10 things that they should be doing with us and why. And then you can take that strategy and either move it to an email draft. So if you're an SDR, you don't even have to know anything about our business or the client, and it's going to write the best email. This is why we should meet. Here's 3 reasons of what I mean. Pick a time below and let's meet. It's a super smart email. And then you've got a proposal builder, which in that workflow could go directly to, we have a team that does this, like strategic proposals and development. And that gives them a way to customize our entire presentation just for that client. So it looks like you've thought about it for days, but it took minutes, right? And then that will write an email. So it just takes all the heavy lift and takes hours out of that process. So you might be able to do that 4 times in a day, and now you could do it like 40 times in a day. So there's definitely like a massive efficiency gain. We haven't really studied all the hours. We're really just in this early stage of rolling it out. We've done it for one brand for marketing services, and then we'll do it over in information services. So we're scaling out that sales team and bringing in an SDR layers on both sides and giving them the tools to scale what they do. So they're not spending all day dinging up contact information and then researching and then crafting an email one by one to each person. Now it's just going to be
done behind the scenes.
Yeah. And they when somebody wants to pick up the phone, and inevitably that's where it's going, someone's getting on the phone to have a relationship conversation, and that's when we bring in the talent. So I feel like we've got that layer. We can cover more ground. There's so many logos we don't get to touch because there's only so many accounts that a rep should be handling to be a true partner to them. And then all these other logos that aren't able to get touched with real meaning behind it. And now this is going to allow us to expand the capabilities of those people.
So do you think that this results in, if Arizent has, how many employees does Arizent have right now?
200.
So do you think this results in Arizent has 200 employees and you've reached the top of your employees because you're going to be able to do so much more with the 200 employees? Or do you see this as holy crap, Arizent's going to grow so much faster and we're going to continue having to hire more employees on top of all the agent work we're doing. Like, how do you think about that?
It seems like it could stay relatively flat for a while, other than sales reps. And the reason why I say that is because if you're doing a really good job of generating new business at this sort of SDR level, whether that's agentic SDR or human SDR, probably a combination of the two, as soon as those become meetings and you've got new clients coming in, a rep should only have a certain number of clients. Like after you've gone past like 30, 40 accounts, like, and you're really trying to grow these into like, hundreds of thousands of dollars of business, be a trusted advisor, you can't have 100 accounts in your bag. I mean, you've got, there's a certain number they're all accountable for. If you can start generating this much new business and you add another $2 million on either side of the house, that's another rep. You need another rep. So right now, between the market intelligence work that we're doing and the aspiration for growing subscriptions, we've just hired 4 people in the last month on the sales team over there. So we'll be net up by the end of the year, by my estimation, in bodies. So I think you have to scale somewhere, and there may be attrition in other areas where we just, that might happen naturally. I don't see this as some sort of layoff machine.
Are there other agents that will come that you do see replacing departments or teams within the company?
We're small. You know what I mean? We're not like Meta laying off 8,000 people. I mean, we have literally 190 people, right? So there's people have pretty distinct purposes, right? So even those people on the data team, there's no way we're just going to build a bunch of agents that do all of our business analysis and publish data to our websites, and no one's going to have eyes on that stuff. Right. I mean, this stuff is, first of all, they're constantly coming up with ideas. Then they have the work done, and then they have to check the work before it goes live. So
this comes back to trust.
Yeah.
It comes back to trust.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about the events business. You guys host like 20 plus events a year across the various brands. What is the structure of those shows typically?
They vary by community. So with the financial services brands, a lot of it is tech focused. So how to adopt technology, payments for them, digital banking, those kinds of things. When you get into like and our wealth management is all about AI. We just went all in. It's called Advise AI. Yeah. So there is a lot of tech. We're a little less of a buyer seller expo, big show type thing, and they're more learn from experts on the stage, peer-to-peer workshopping moments, and there's definitely some demos, which we do public as part of the show is product demos and judging, and we make a whole kind of fun aspect out of it for that. So you really go there to discover solutions and hear from experts. So it's like live journalism plus tech. And then there's others that are a little bit more community oriented, like the bond buyer ones are all content. There's not a big tech story there. So it's really community. You have policymakers and lawyers and municipalities and money people and bankers, and they're all coming together trying to kind of see, it's a little bit more like policy and reg driven type things. And then, in accounting, it's how to grow your business. You have a lot of small businesses, and then there's big businesses buying small businesses. So we launched a PE summit, which is really about, how do you get your firm ready to either raise capital, acquire, or be acquired kind of thing. And there's a lot of interest there. There's a lot of activity in that space. So that's been a whole new chapter for accounting today. This is the dynamics of the market. People they have trouble growing, and that's the path. There's no succession plan. There's nobody to hire. They're worried about AI. And then there's these bigger firms who are, okay, we love AI, and we bring your customers to us, and there's a plan for you. So that's become its own event. So they kind of splinter off a bit too.
So we've talked a little bit about subscriptions or information services, which is one GM. We've talked about events a little bit, which is another GM, and then kind of the community component to that. And then obviously the third is marketing services. I've spoken with some operators who say that the marketing services and branded content parts of their businesses are feeling a little bit of pressure. Some thesis around perhaps just too much spend over the past few years, some thesis around AI and some some buyers are thinking they can just create their own stuff using AI. We don't need to go to a publisher to help us out. Are you seeing any pressure on the marketing services part of your business? And if not, why do you think that you're not?
The biggest headwind that I've seen is turnover on the client side. Ever since COVID, you've sort of got a CMO lifespan of 12 to 18 months. There's a lot of turnover within the organization. Maybe some of that is AI. I haven't necessarily heard that, that's the reason why there's so much movement over there, but just those client relationships kind of turning. The media agencies turn. There's just, every year they're fired and there's a new one coming on board. You got to build a whole new relationship. So this idea of like keeping in touch with your contacts and finding where the new agency went. Where did that CMO land? Make sure that relationship goes over there, and who filled their shoes, and make sure you build that relationship. And I spent a lot of time on both sides of the house meeting with CEOs of these brands, CMOs of these brands, and trying to just, again, back to the relationship thing. There's no agent that's going to call the CEO of a fintech. I have about 5 meetings this week with fintech CEOs because I build a relationship with them, and then ultimately I help figure out how they're going to help their business grow, and that naturally will land in marketing services, but it also should land in subscriptions. Right. So I just help them understand how we could be helpful and how we can help them. So there's a lot of that on the marketing services side. I've just got a new leader from the Informa Tech Target world that we just announced, which I'm very excited about. So I think we're already having an amazing year in marketing services. But a lot of it was about that, just looking at the TAM, which is something that we typically hadn't really done in this part of the business, and said, okay, how many logos are out there? What are the new ones? What are the ones we've lost? What are the win backs? It's a high churn business. So you just have to, you can't stop people from spending less or moving their money from here to there, but you can go back and find them or add new ones. And you just have to be constantly feeding the pipeline and looking at all the possibilities that are out there, and launching new communities is another good strategy. Because once if you've tapped one out and you're working with everybody in this community and you feel like that one's sort of stagnant, okay, maybe that's not the high growth community anymore. Like you work with, all the big spenders over there, and there's some little ones, but it's matured out. This whole on-chain, blockchain world in finance right now, it's a whole new world of people that have huge dollars that are trying to get into banks. And that's why these big disruptive end markets are so important, because the stakes are high, the dollars are high, people spend big money. So you have to you have to play in the fields where there's big money being spent, and then you go get those new ones, and you can add hundreds of thousands of dollars from those accounts.
So looking across the 3 business units, right? Information services, events, and marketing services, from a revenue perspective, how would you break down those 3 divisions, if you will?
From a revenue mix?
Yeah.
It's approaching 50 by the end of this year for subscriptions.
50% or 50 million? Okay.
50%. And then about 30 marketing services and about 20 for events.
And as you think about growth, do you think that pie stays about that, or do you think that growth looks subscriptions becoming 55 and 60 and the others shrinking? Like, how do you think about that?
It would take a lot to get to 55 and 60
for subs,
just because it's a lot of revenue in there now. And we're growing in marketing services and events. So it's not like time standing still for that one to do it. I mean, I would like it to keep going beyond that, but I think we are, the profile that we are is probably I think the events will grow. I mean, marketing services, you don't want to be, from a value creation perspective, you don't want that to be the large part of the pie anymore. Right. So I'm not saying we're trying to shrink it. We definitely will take growth, but the growth in event subscriptions is number one priority. And then, events clearly will grow 20% this year. It's great. And year on year. And then marketing services will grow incrementally. Mm-hmm. That's by design. Yeah.
What are you projecting the year to do from a revenue perspective?
I'll just say the growth, we're about 11% year over year right now on the first quarter.
Across the whole blend?
Yep. So I think we land around 10%.
Dig it.
Year over year growth.
And what about from a profitability perspective? Is Arizent profitable?
Oh, very profitable. Yeah.
Like, how do you define very profitable?
approaching 30% EBITDA margins.
I mean, that is very profitable.
Yeah. And that's our goal from our management. And we grew EBITDA 33% last year.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
So we've talked about a lot of positive things that have worked, things that are growing, all of that. You've been there now for 8 years. What is a bet that you guys made that just didn't pay off? Something that on paper you were like, this is going to be a slam dunk. We know this is going to crush it. And then it just flopped.
A net new bet or just a...
Whatever's coming to your mind right now.
I would say after COVID, one of the biggest mistakes was we came back with some events that were big and like, top two in the industry, well known and respected events. And we came back with this sort of a smaller conference model, more editorially driven model that nobody wanted it. The attendees wanted more people and more excitement, and that got lost. And then this was for a few of the flagship events. We didn't do it. And then the sponsors clearly wanted more.
Right.
And we did not come back with the same approach on 2 of those events. And one of them is gone, which is a tragedy because it was really, really a special event and big, multi-million-dollar event.
Gone.
Zero.
And you can't bring it back?
No, we tried.
Yeah.
There's only so far you can do to try.
Yeah. So if we look out 3 to 5 years from now, what is Arizent? We've talked a little bit about revenue mix. Is the company sold? Will you have more intelligence brands? Like what becomes of Arizent in the next 3 to 5 years?
Yeah, I think it's going to take 3 years. We have a 3-year plan to roll out everything we just talked about. I think the market intelligence piece, if the peer-to-peer thing takes off, that's a big business to roll out in its own right. And then all the AI work, which I'm super excited about. Scary in some circumstances, but I'm super optimistic about what it can do for our business, for the world at large. Saddens me a little bit, but I think it will be good for business if you pair it up correctly with our talent, and I think that's where we're heading.
All right, I want to end with the same 2 questions I ask every operator that comes on the show. First, we've talked a lot about the intelligence business, the events business, how you guys are looking at AI from centralizing it versus decentralizing it. For a media operator trying to figure out where to place their bets right now, what is the one thing that you would tell them to focus on?
I would focus on subscriptions. I just think it's or subscription-based products because they are sticky relationship builders and they allow you to diversify into any space and they create an incredible amount of value. It's just a very profitable, sustainable business.
And my second question is, in your life, it could be work-related, personal, or whatever, what is something you are absolutely obsessed with right now?
I'm pretty obsessed with AI.
Okay.
Even personally, I mean, my team would tell you that I should keep my paws out of it, but I do spend a lot of time on the weekends digging in, researching, and even playing around. I mean, I definitely have developed software in my past, so I understand how this stuff works for the most part, at least conceptually. So I spend probably more time than I should playing around with it. But I'm really excited about it. I haven't been excited about something since the web this much.
So this is the web. This is all over again.
The next iteration.
Love it.
Yeah.
Well, Jeff, thank you so much.
You bet.